Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm going to give a few more seconds for people to join in, and we're going to be starting pretty soon. Yeah, so hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. We put together some great stuff for you. And I have with me Harish Gaur, who's the Senior Director for Product Management for Oracle Internet of Things. Thanks, Harish, for joining in. We would love to hear more about you.
Thank you, Ali. Excited to be here. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me. I'm here in my office, sunny Redwood City, California. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management for Oracle Internet of Things Cloud portfolio, and excited about next 1 hour to be spending with you.
So here's the agenda we have for you. First of all, we're going to have Harish give us an overview for the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring application. We're then going to cover how Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring can coexist with your JD Edwards Capital Asset Management module. We're going to see some very exciting demos here, a complete end-to-end cycle between how your asset is going to be monitored on the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring and how it's going to be accounted for in your capital asset management module, and also the two-way integration. We're going to have an end-to-end demo at that point. So Harish, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ali. So hello, everyone. Again, this is Harish Gaur, and let's talk about why asset monitoring is an important area from a business point of view. If you look at some of the statistics here, the two stats which I would like to highlight, the first one is 70%. 70% of the businesses still rely on manually locating and tracking their physical equipment. Now, whether you're a mining industry or engineering and construction or in a hospital, that's quite a bit of inefficiency if you spend 70%, if you are one of those 70% businesses manually trying to locate where the equipment is. And the next statistic is 25% of the total operating costs of a typical manufacturing companies for asset maintenance. That's a significant number. 1/4 of all the expenses of your company could potentially be spent on maintaining those assets. Probably you have some sort of a maintenance schedule, and more likely than not, that maintenance schedule is either over servicing or under servicing the asset, because sometimes assets are healthy and don't need to be serviced, and sometimes asset break down and you can't wait for the maintenance schedule, the next appointment to come up. So there is a significant amount of optimization which we could do in monitoring the assets, in automating the process of fixing those assets so that the unscheduled downtime is reduced. Right? That's the primary area where most of the companies are looking at IoT, is how can IoT help me find where my asset is and fix this asset so that the unscheduled downtime is much lower. Next slide, please. And we have seen variety of different use cases in our customer base. Remote monitoring of vending machines. We are working with one of the leading providers of carbonated drinks. You might know them already. You might use their products. They are using IoT, Oracle IoT portfolio for monitoring their vending machines. These vending machines are not only stocking their inventory, but they are also giving them data about which drinks are moving more than the other drinks. And then based on the data gathered about how much stock is there inside the vending machine, they can do automatic stock replenishment. Condition monitoring of a refrigerated cargo, a very big use case in the cold chain scenario when you're transporting perishable products, which needs to be maintained in a strict temperature and a strict humidity and a strict environmental condition requirements. We are working with customers to monitor that perishable product transportation process so that there's reduction in the spoilage. Likewise, we see use cases, for example, in inventory management of warehouses, where exactly are my bikes in the warehouse, and I could spend less time in looking for my bikes, as well as soon as the bike is taken out of the warehouse, I'm notified about it. This is an important use case. If a bike, in this case, leaves outside the warehouse, it may be because of two reasons. It could be because the bike is being taken to the truck to be transported, or it could be because the bike is being stolen. So the shrinkage of the asset is an important area where we could help our customers reduce the costs and reduce the shrinkage. And the last one is in the mining industry, where the equipment uptime is extremely important for continued operations. So we monitor some of these heavy equipment to ensure that they don't go down, and predictively let the customer know if this equipment is going to have a failure and fix it proactively. Next slide, please. Now you might wonder what kind of equipments, what kind of machines are we seeing in the IoT landscape? We talked about 4 of them in the previous slide. But a generic way of looking at this is any heavy equipment, any machine which you deem important, which is of high capital asset value, first of all. And if you think that if that asset goes down, it will impact your business operation. If those two things are checked off, then that asset should be monitored. Okay. And we see those assets in all the industries, in mining and manufacturing, in hospitals and facilities. So we have worked with customers who are tracking their blood infusion pumps in a hospital building, or tracking their HVAC systems inside the building, or tracking excavators inside the mining zone. So again, the idea is we want to monitor a high value equipment, and we can't afford that equipment to go down because it's going to impact our business operation. Next slide, please. We already talked about this one, right? 70% of the businesses today are manually monitoring their assets. They're manually tracking where the asset is located. I'll give you an example here. We're working with a customer in the hospital industry. Their nurses spend on an average 3 hours every day looking for the medical equipment. Imagine if there is a critical surgery which is to be performed, and the nurse is trying to find out where exactly is the next blood infusion pump or the X-ray machine located. That's a significant impact, not only on the efficiency, but also on the life of an individual. So the tracking of the assets is very manual today. And the second area is, what is the exact health of the asset? Typically, customers have a very set schedule. It's like, I will go and service my equipment once every 3 months or once every 6 months. The problem with that is the asset might not have issues for it to be serviced every 3 or 6 months, or the asset might have issues which might be before the servicing schedule. So there is more, sometimes you service the asset more, sometimes you service the asset less. The condition of asset is not known until it breaks down. That's the second challenge. Next slide, please. So what are we doing to address this problem? So what we have done is We have worked with many of our customers who are also JD Edwards customers, Enterprise One customers, and we realize that they are storing all the asset static information inside CAM, but they have no way of really understanding what's happening to the asset out in the field, right? So we want to bring the real-time location and real-time health monitoring of the asset into JD Edwards Capital Asset Management, into e-business suite enterprise asset management. How are we doing that? We're doing that using this product called IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud. There are three key capabilities it delivers out of the box. The first one is track and detect. Our goal at the simplest level is to help your assets, your equipments, which you're already capturing inside your enterprise asset management module. We want to help you track their location at real time, track their health at real time, track the utilization at real time, and track their availability. Are they having problems or they need attention? That's the availability. We will track those key performance indicators of the assets at real time in order to detect any maintenance needs and in order to detect if the asset is being stolen, in order to react faster to what's happening with the asset. So that's one area. Now let's talk about the second one. And if we can move on to the next slide. Now, tracking can only go so far, right? The real value comes when you not only are visualizing what's happening with the asset at real time, but you are also contextualizing this data with the rest of the other enterprise data sources and give intelligent predictions. Wouldn't it be nice if I could look at all my excavators across all the construction zones and find out how many of them were most used and how many of them were least used? That's one example. More importantly, what percentage of these excavators are going to break down within next 24 hours? Or which excavator is going to have a high temperature anomaly within next 48 hours? If we could predict the behavior of the equipment in the future, then we have more time to address that behavioral anomaly today. Predictive maintenance is what some people call it. The idea here is by listening to the sensory data from all these different equipments, we could predict using machine learning algorithms what will happen to the asset in the future. And that can have significant impact on how we service the asset and how we can reduce the cost of maintaining the asset. That's where the 25% number comes in, right? If we can bring that 25% number down to even 23%, that could have a significant impact on the bottom line for all your customers. Next slide, please. Okay. So we talked about tracking the location and the health of the asset. We talked about predicting the location and the health of the asset. The next area, which is where Oracle really outshines all our competitors, is creating insights is one thing, but acting on insights is where the significant business value comes in, right? If you have detected that an excavator is going to have a motor breakdown, or if the medical equipment like a blood infusion pump would need to be serviced within next 24 hours, there are actions which you would like to take. There are corrective actions which are typically driven by your maintenance systems, your trouble ticketing systems, your asset management systems. And this is where JD Edwards Capital Asset Management integration becomes extremely important. We do realize that all your assets are probably stored in some sort of an EAM like JD Edwards CAM. So we could actually give JD Edwards CAM an insight into what's happening with an asset or what will happen with an equipment, so that incidents and work orders could be automatically created inside your JD Edwards system, and JD Edwards can then take that work order and push it through the rest of the process. So we have out of the box integrations, as well as with our partners like Ephlux, we have created much richer and deeper integration with JD Edwards CAM and eBusiness Suite EAM, and we'll show that in the demo. So just to recap, if we go to the next slide, we talked about how IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud can help track the health, the location of the equipment, predict its behavior and its health, and then drive corrective actions through integration with the back office app like JD Edwards. And the typical path which your customers take is they start with level 0, which is, hey, where exactly is my equipment? Is it at this corner in my building, or in this? Is it in this room in my warehouse? The biggest challenge which is solved right now by customers is tracking the real-time location of the asset. And that could be done by simply putting some sort of a RFID tag or a BLE sensor or a GPS tracking device on the actual equipment. The next one is level 1. Here we go and start monitoring the environmental health of the asset. Maybe it's temperature, maybe it's vibration level, maybe it's humidity. All these variables can tell important information about whether the asset is behaving well or not. If the temperature rises above 250 degrees, it might indicate asset has a problem. The motor might be breaking down. So that's level 1, where asset already has experienced some sort of an issue and we react to it. And then as customers go past the level 0 and level 1, now they have a good understanding of in what situations is asset breaking down. So we could then use machine learning algorithms to help with level 2, which is asset may have a problem. We can detect anomalous behavior of the asset. Or level 3, asset is likely to have a problem, where we predict with some level of confidence that the asset will break down in next 4 hours, 24 hours, or 48 hours. That's why we really take pride in the fact that we don't just focus on tracking the location and the health, but we apply sophisticated machine learning algorithms to predict and then integrate all those predictions, all those insights with something like JD Edwards CAM. At this point in time, I would like to invite Ali to walk us through how this solution comes together.
Thanks a lot, Harish. Thanks for great insights and a great overview of value proposition and work that out into a full working demo. So as most webinar might know, that we are a very specialized partner when it comes to integrating JD Edwards within the Oracle ecosystem and beyond. And especially when it comes to IoT, we are a member of Customer Advisory Board, whereby we've been working very closely with Oracle Product Management Group for Internet of Things to be able to IoTify the rest of the Oracle ecosystem, especially on the using Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. We've completed a story that we are going to be discussing here in the form of a demo of how that's going to coexist with your capital asset management. Before we go there, let's talk about at the different levels people are or the companies are with regards to their asset maintenance or asset management. So obviously level 0 is where you are completely reactive. You know, when something breaks down, you run around and try to fix that in a reactive way. A lot of companies who are utilizing modules like capital asset management in case of JD Edwards, or EAM in case of EBS, etc., they at least have the preventive scheduling sorted out, right? They would have either as part of the SLA, if they have rented or leased out these equipments to their customers, or they are their own assets, they would have a preventive schedule for that. Things like, my generators, for example, are going to have or a preventive schedule for servicing. But the problem with that is that you might actually either over maintain the assets, which might not need that, or you might under maintain them, which might increase the chances of downtime, right? So either way, you have a potential to lose money. What Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring does, as Harish was explaining very eloquently during his part, is automate what is on the ground, on the field, and create a digital twin of that asset inside of Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. And what we've done is integrated that with your capital asset management module inside of your JD Edwards, so that everything works in sync. Your assets that you're the asset master in your JD Edwards and the actual physical assets on the ground, they are connected together in the real time. The level 3 is where you take that even further, whereby you start predicting what might go wrong with the asset. That gives you a good head start in terms of your planning, in terms of rerouting your resources, labor and spare parts, and completely optimize your supply chain with regards to the maintenance activities of your equipment. And as Harish said, that even a small percentage, a few points in the percentage can make huge difference on the bottom line. So taking the same thing, let's talk a little bit about the level 1. And this diagram of this process flow would be something that you do day in, day out when you use your capital asset management module. You would have the equipment master or the asset master inside of your JD Edwards. You would create those preventive maintenance schedules, that would result in creating a preventive maintenance work order, for which you would need inventory, you would need labor, you'll do the maintenance planning, and based on that planning, you will have scheduled work orders that you are going to perform maintenance against, and then close those work orders, right? And then have a history of those work orders. So now that's the typical cycle which customers follow when they are on that level 1, where they have the preventive scheduling sorted out. The next phase is where you start smart maintenance. Instead of not just a reactive maintenance or a scheduled maintenance, you're doing a smart, proactive, preemptive maintenance. So this is the diagram which kind of gives an overview of how this whole thing works together, whereby all the assets across different industries could be sending data out to the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud, where you have a digital twin of that physical asset, both in terms of location, in terms of its health, and depending on which use case you're talking about, there will be different sensor data that you'll be capturing and making sense out of within the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. On the right-hand side are those modules that are your bread and butter when you talk about the maintenance part of your organization, which is capital asset management, your job cost accounting, your service work orders, your billing in case you've rented out those equipments, and again, generation of invoices against them, expense recognition, against those assets, and so on and so forth. What we've done as Ephlux is complete that loop between this digital twin residing in the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring and all the great analytics and machine learning capabilities of Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, and marry that with your core business process that is your bread and butter, when it comes to your operations. So what we're going to do now is talk a little bit more about the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, and I'll hand it over to Harish to give us an overview of how this gas compressor, which we've instrumented by adding some sensors on top of it, is going to be monitored within the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. So over to you, Harish.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Ali, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
You cannot see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's try something else. For some reason, I'm seeing the spinning wheel here when I'm trying to share my desktop. So bear with me. Okay, let's try this. I'm sharing my entire screen. How about now?
Not yet. Can you try to stop sharing and then share screen again?
Yeah, let me give that a shot.
Yeah, you're back here, Harish. Try sharing the screen now. Perfect. Yeah, you can see it now, Harish.
Okay, sorry for that logistical challenge. I don't know why my browser was being unresponsive. So we are back in action. So as Ali mentioned, here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you an end-to-end solution demo where we are going to be monitoring an industrial asset. In this case is a gas compressor. Okay, and we are going to be monitoring that asset using Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud. And as soon as we detect any health related problems with the asset, we are going to create an incident inside cloud, asset monitoring cloud, and that incident will be integrated with JD Edwards CAM. So we'll show you the flow from end to end. So to begin with, I am an operations manager, and I am going to be logging in into IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud. This is a SaaS application which is running inside Oracle's public cloud, and it listens to all the industrial assets which are out there deployed in the field. The very first thing I will see as an operations manager is a comprehensive view of where are all my industrial assets located. In this case, I can clearly see that there are 6 equipments which I have in and around the Dallas area. And right at the bottom is where the interesting things is happening. What you see here, the KPI ribbon. This is how the operations manager is going to get an understanding of all his assets performance. In this case, I see that there are 6 assets located, and as I zoom in, I can start to see where exactly are these assets located, and then drill down into individual ones. But let's zoom out for a second. There are 6 assets and 33% of those are connected. These are the equipments which are actively sending data to Oracle's IoT cloud. They are communicating, they are live, they are connected. Rest 66% perhaps are not being used, or perhaps are stored in a warehouse, so they're not being utilized. 83% of these assets are available. The higher the number, the better, because they are available to be used, to be utilized, but for some reason they might not be. 17%, which is one asset which is having a problem, and that's why it's not available. And then there is a custom KPI called pressure ratio, where I'm monitoring what is the pressure ratio of each and every gas compressor here. And then let me zoom out. And then there is one asset which has an incident associated with it. An incident implies something is wrong with my equipment. That equipment is telling me, pay attention to me, I am having certain problems, or I may be having certain problems, either of those. So that's an incident associated with it. So the key point here is not only I get a comprehensive view through which I can see where exactly are my equipments located, I also get a comprehensive view of my metrics, my KPIs, which tell me how my equipments are performing based on real-time sensor data. Okay. Now, I'm curious as you are. It's like, what exactly is going on? Why is one of the asset not available? Why is it having an incident associated with it? So we're going to drill down. And at this point in time, I know that this Woods underscore 3516, that's the gas compressor, which seems to be alerting me about something is happening. And this is where IoT asset monitoring becomes extremely good friend of JD Edwards CAM, because now I am listening to these equipments out in the field, identifying if something is wrong with that asset, and then telling JD Edwards CAM, please take action, right? I see that there are 2 incidents which have been created just about 30 minutes ago. One was created at 8:46 a.m., where it says gas leak detected, and another one was created at 8:48 a.m. on April 5th, which is high temperature detected for the motor. So something is going wrong with this equipment, which requires action. Now let me briefly tell you how this incident was created, what's happening in the background. So typically what happens is these compressors have variety of different sensors attached to them. These sensors measure different environmental and health parameters of the equipment. For example, I am having a sensor which measures the coolant flow, and I could see at real time how that coolant flow is fluctuating. Likewise, I have sensors which measure the motor temperature, which measure the suction pressure, and all of these sensors are sending data at real time, and IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud listens to these streams of data at real time, performs real-time event processing, as well as performs predictive analytics on it to create incidents. Okay, so far we know that an incident has been created, which is telling that this equipment has broken down. This incident was created because I configured my business rules right over here. As a business user, he has the most domain expertise of what would qualify as an asset breakdown, or what would qualify as something is wrong and funky or anomalous with the equipment behavior. And he can configure those right over here. For example, I have a business rule for potential motor damage, and it applies to my compressor called Orchestration 3516. And if I drill down, and see what that business rule is, it tells me that I'm looking for a condition which says if the motor temperature, right over here, if the motor temperature is greater than 280 degrees Fahrenheit, then I want an incident to be created which will tell me that a potential motor damage on an unsupported workload is being experienced by this compressor. Now, this business rule is being applied to a sensory stream of data coming from the compressor. Likewise, I can use machine learning algorithms to create what we call as anomalies and predictions. And the outcome of that is whenever I see that the equipment is exhibiting an anomalous behavior, a behavior which indicates it might break down or it might have broken down, then I detect those using my machine learning algorithms, which can either look for a pattern or either look for a point-based anomaly. So here, for example, I have discovered that there are 4,686 occurrences where the pressure, discharge pressure of my compressor is not right. It's anomalous. And I can see exactly when that anomaly was taking place. Anomaly pattern detected from this time to this time. Likewise, there is a similar anomalous pattern detected for suction pressure. There is also a prediction which is being made based on what we have learned about the compressor over past several days and several months. And using that learning, using that intelligence, I am able to now predict that this compressor will have a pressure ratio of 0.19 now, within a day. Now, for a person who is a domain expert, he might look at this and say, oh, the pressure ratio will fall below maybe 0.25. I think we need to take a look at this compressor as soon as possible. Let's create an incident. So what we have shown here so far is IoT asset monitoring is listening to the equipments which are deployed out in the field, listening to their health, their location, and performing analytics to create what we call as incidents which tell something is wrong or something will go wrong with the equipment out in the field. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Now what happens is we will take actions based on these incidents. So there's a high temperature, the gas leak was detected, as you can see right here. A gas leak was detected at 8:46 a.m. What do we do about it? Well, this compressor is now managed inside JD Edwards CAM. So we need to tell JD Edwards CAM, do something about it. And that's where the integration between IoT asset monitoring and JD Edwards CAM comes into the picture. And that's where Ali will walk us through. So Ali, over to you.
Thanks, Harish. Thanks for taking us through a wonderful demo of Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. So what I'm going to do now is, first of all, share my screen. Okay, so right before Harish started his demo, being a little funky, I'll just close the camera. So, so right before Harish started the demo, we were actually on this slide that you can see right now. Just highlight this so that you just keep seeing this one. Yeah. So before there, we were discussing how at different stages, companies are, and what you saw right now was the level 2 and level 3 the companies can take by not just monitor the assets proactively, not just location, but their health, their current status, and also being able to predict anomalies. Have the anomalies detected and then predict the failures. So what we've done at Ephlux, we've taken your capital asset management module, and we've integrated that with the whole value proposition that Harish just discussed with us. So that in your context as a JD Edwards customer, this is not some pie in the sky value proposition, but something real that you can adopt today without compromising your core business process. That's already there. So you don't have to even touch your core process, but completely make it coexist with all the wonderful things that Harish just told you. So referring back to the demo, we are going to be looking at these key components, like the gas compressor, sending the data out to the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, and the capital asset management modules, and the service management modules for the service work order. And without compromising this core business process that we discussed earlier. So let me go there and show you. I'm going to show that in the real environment too, but let me tell you what I'm going to be covering. So first of all, the gas compressor, or for that matter, all your assets, your asset master, as you know, is within your JD Edwards. First of all, we synchronize that asset master with the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, so that you don't have to duplicate any of that. That'll be the first piece. The other piece is where once the anomaly is detected, like Harish was showing in the demo, and the alert is created, what we've done is we've used JD Edwards Orchestrator to create an alert inside of your condition-based monitoring alert inside of capital asset management module, and also an emergency work order, so that if JD Edwards. And then we've mapped out all the key data that is being captured from the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring and contextualizing it with your business variables or your business objects that you have within your JD Edwards Capital Asset Management module. And then we are going to see how this anomaly that was detected created an alert and how it resulted in that service work order. Last but not the least, what we're going to take a look at is creation of the service work order inside of a service management module. And once we've done that, the last piece that we're really going to look at is the financial impact of over maintaining versus under maintaining versus smart maintaining your equipment. So we're going to be utilizing the equipment cost analysis module inside of JD Edwards CAM to be able to not just know what is the impact of the smart maintenance that you can now do with all this wonderful data that Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring is going to be pushed JD Edwards way, but also pull the financial values of your cost analysis for that equipment and send it back into the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring. So you can have a visual view of the real-time financial impact of whether or not perform a service work order at a point in time. So let me go to the environments real quick for the JD Edwards. So inside of your JD Edwards, you have your equipment master or asset master that you can search, and you have static location that you have there. What we have done is kind of take the actual real-time location and map it out and being able to show that inside of your JD Edwards. The other thing we've done inside of the condition-based monitoring, as the gas compressor was doing certain things and was capturing different values, we've been able to create these alerts. So instead of just creating these alerts, like in a typical level 1 scenario where you are using capital asset management module, typically there will be an physically taking readings from those assets and filling out either at best on a tablet those readings, and those are going to be manual readings based on which you're going to create these alerts and based on which you are going to create a service work order all manually, right? Just imagine the amount of effort and time and the chances of error that this process can create of doing it manually. And scale that to thousands of your assets nationwide and worldwide. Just imagine the losses that you could be making by not getting that piece of information just in time. So either you'll be over maintaining all your assets as a knee-jerk reaction, or you might not maintain it enough, and there might be a downtime which could create a huge impact. So that's is being monitored, and these alerts that you see here, are being created through that. Lastly, like we said, the service work orders. So through the JDR, let me pull up an orchestration that I was trying to show you there, and I'll show you how exactly this whole process works. Once you've captured the data from Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, what exactly can you do with that data? So here is that orchestration whereby we've captured the alert information that was generated based on the anomalies detected and the prediction made. Based on that, we captured that alert, mapped it out inside of the orchestration, whitelisted the equipment that you would like to monitor, cross-reference that sensor data to the equipment data, and then based on the rules. So you might have certain rules that you might want to define. Where what exactly do you want to do with your business process at that point in time? What are the thresholds at which you would like to take action? So those rules, like Harish showed inside of IoT Asset Monitoring, can trigger this request, but then there could be certain business rules contextual to your business process, as opposed to just the asset itself. You might have an SLA, for example, right? You might have a preventive schedule coming up whereby it might be able to detect whether or not there is a work order exists for today. So if there is a work order already that exists for today, you might not have to do anything, right? Because that preventive schedule might be in line with your asset's health. If you thought that every 3 months you should be changing the oil on your generator, but in a lot of cases, this work order might not exist today, but all the conditions that you are being monitored, that you monitored from the physical asset, suggest that there should be an emergency work order created, right? So based on that condition, you could actually go in and create that work order. What happens is inside of this orchestration, and as I was explaining earlier, that you map it all out to the actual objects inside of your JD Edwards. You get all this wonderful data from the asset monitor, create these condition-based alerts, or the actual service work order, depending on what business rule you are on. So an alert might just kind of alert you, but in case there is an SLA which says that the downtime cannot happen, or this might have a major impact, you might want to create a preemptive work order right there. So all of these things, what we've done is kind of mapped it out, made it easier for you to kind of just adopt this technology right away. So basically, with regards to the service work order creation. Last thing that we discussed was even more interesting, which was the equipment cost analysis. So all the CFOs out there, I mean, it might attract all the CTOs or CIOs that, this is a cool technology, you should adopt this, and it's a lot of fun. But what really makes the business tick is the bottom line, right? So now the most interesting part of this value proposition is that this is the best frequency for me to maintain this asset. In a way, it's kind of similar to your EOQ, which is the efficient order quantity for the retail business, where you would know how much of an asset should, or how much of the inventory, for example, should be stored in the warehouse versus how frequently should you be ordering. Similar concept, optimizing, or the cost minimization and the uptime maximization of your assets. These formulas can only work if you get that real-time insights right from your IoT asset monitoring, and then being able to not just make these formulas static, but dynamic, right? So you would, for example, be able to know what is the total maintenance per fuel, what is the total maintenance cost per hour, and based on where exactly the asset is right now, where you'll have to go and fix it. So the mileage, the miles that you'll have to travel to fix it, is it worth it doing it at this point in time? Based on your equipment cost analysis, that's within your JD Edwards Capital Asset Management. So imagine the power of this value proposition, that not just that you're monitoring the asset, you are, in terms of where they are, you're not just having a preventive schedule for them, but a preemptive schedule, which is not just to reduce the downtime or optimize the schedules, but actually have the hard dollar value impact with regards to the return on investment. So as both basically Oracle and these citing use cases to make it easier for you to adopt and realize the benefits of basically IoTifying your key business process and using IoT as a high velocity and high value integrator across your enterprise to bring these sort of value propositions to life. So that's pretty much it for the webinar itself. We would love to have some questions if you have some, and be able to respond to them. So there's a question here. So regarding how is Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring package? Is that a separate product from the our Oracle IoT Cloud service, or how does that play with that?
I can take that question. So the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud is a SaaS application built on top of IoT Cloud service, which is the platform component. So if you subscribe to Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud, then it includes the underlying platform.
Okay. So a second question for you, Harish. The assets that we saw inside of Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, is that the asset master then, and everything else within the organization looks up to it to synchronize itself from?
That's a good question.
Or the ERP should be the asset master. So what's your recommendation on that?
That's a good question. Thanks for whoever asked that question. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, the assets which we saw in the demo in the IoT Asset Monitoring, the gas compressors, those assets are imported from your asset master. Your asset master is either JD Edwards CAM or eBusiness Suite EAM or any other asset management system. IoT Asset Monitoring Cloud is not the asset master. That's why what we do is, through integrations like what Ali showed, we import the asset information from your asset master and use that information for tracking any metadata which we need about the asset. Ali, anything else you want to add to that?
I think a great question. So as you would know from the cost accounting perspective, or even from your pure accounting perspective, the assets need to be closer to your general ledger, to your accounting, right? So it makes all the sense that the asset master stays within your ERP, so that you can do all the cost accounting based on that. Do all the expense recognition, all your depreciation of the asset, and all of those things need to be closer to your agility that you need, all the monitoring that you need, all the asset that by default cannot be inside of the ERP. And that's where Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring does such a great job to create a digital twin of the physical asset and then synchronize it back into your ERP for the financial impact of that asset being in a certain way, to create an impact on the business process, to trigger a business process, take actions on those insights. All of those things is where, having an end-to-end integrated solution really brings that value in reality. And that's where we kind of build the solution for you as Ephlux. So another quick question that I have, the comment says that this all sounds very interesting. Where do we start? What are the steps to success? What needs to be done first, second, third? So maybe I'll take that up. So basically, what you need to do as a JD Edwards customer, having a capital asset management module is a great thing that you already are at level 1 or level 2 for that matter. You need to make sure that, first of all, your master data management with regards to your assets is sorted out, which in most cases, if you have a capital asset management module, is already there because your asset master is JD Edwards. The next step is that you should be able to identify the types of assets. And like Harish mentioned, that which assets should be monitored, which ones are the high value assets, and which ones have the biggest impact financially if they go down. Right, so you might want to make some asset groups and some asset types. Those asset groups within your Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring, it could be those logical groups where you are, saying that these assets have the biggest impact on your operation, for example. And asset types could be the actual type of an asset, like a gas compressor and stuff like that. Once you map that out, then you need to work out what exactly do you need to monitor from each particular asset, and that's where the hardware sensor aspect of it comes in. So what we've done at Ephlux, we've built some very solid hardware components which capture all the key values like your pressure, your temperature, and we have arrangements with leading telcos in the US where we have worked out a complete turnkey solution for you, utilizing this hardware and the telemetry data plans together to come up with that value proposition. So once that hardware piece and the connectivity piece is sorted out, what is that you need to capture from that asset that is going to give you the best insight and the most actionable intelligence that you can gather from there. Once that piece is sorted out, obviously you do that firmware piece and you connect that to the Oracle IoT Asset Monitoring with the device models associated with those assets. Once you've done that, that is where the fun part starts, where you can start creating those rules to be able to create those incidents and then trigger, utilizing our integration, the JD Edwards service management modules and the condition-based monitoring alerts and the service work orders. And once you are through that, then you get to that level 3, that holy grail really is where you are starting to predict. You're starting to detect the anomalies, and you're starting to tell what is going to be the workload for your maintenance in the next few weeks, and being able to optimize your scheduling and your routing of your resources at the right point in time, and then starting to calculate the actual financial impact of how much you are saving every day or every week and every month and every quarter by just being able to predict as opposed to proact as opposed to react to those incidents that are going to happen in your operations. So that would, in a broader sense, would be the roadmap for this. So now we have just 2 minutes left. So I would like to share, Harish, before we sign off here. You seem to be muted, Harish.
Sorry, Ali, was there a comment for me?
Yeah, so we have just a minute left. I would like to give you the floor to give any concluding remarks or any suggestions to the customers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate everyone's time in attending this session today, and thanks to Ali for putting this together. As we went through this solution, you would have understood that this end-to-end solution today exists. Customers are using it, and IoT is something which is being used by customers for driving real business value, we can get you started and get you up and running with level 0 and level 1 of what Ali explained within matter of weeks. And Ali's team has a significant expertise in stitching the end-to-end solution all the way from sensors to the connectivity to IoT and to your JD Edwards. So we look forward to any queries from you. If you are interested in finding out more information about any of these products, please reach out to either Ali or myself.
Thank you, Harish. Thanks for the great participation in the webinar. And thanks everyone for joining in. We are almost hitting the hour. And feel free to look at the recording. You will have the recording. Feel free to go through that, share it amongst your colleagues. And we would love to schedule some follow-up meetings with you to see how this is going to work within your business context and within your respective industry. Thank you, everyone, and take good care. Bye-bye.